All faith groups, Mr. Walker, be they Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh or any other, place great store by their support for their communities. And it's vitally important that we in Parliament ensure their voices are heard. Over the years, oversensitivity to cultural issues and a growing muscular secularism has meant that the amazing work done by people of faith, often for the most vulnerable, goes by unnoticed. Yeah. And of course, people of faith aren't doing this in return for gratitude or recognition. But on the other hand, we should make space in public life for those of faith. So I support many of the report's recommendations, and in particular would like to call for 3 specific things. The first is for local authorities to deliberately work more closely with faith groups, taking advantage of the support that they bring to local communities, to attempt to simplify processes and jargon, and to share best practice between local authorities. Secondly, for local authorities to try and look from a plural rather than a secular perspective at the services they offer in their communities. The leader of Churches Together in Northamptonshire, a man by the name of Ted Hale, tells me that he and many others do work for non-Christian organisations such as Arthritis Care and Help for the Elderly and so on. And yet, when you look at who runs those organisations, it's very often people of faith.
Hey YouTubers, a bit of a serious one today because we're going to be looking at the Faith and Communities department, as it were, of the government. The Ministry of Faith and Communities. I have mentioned it once before, and it was certainly the faith part was set up last year, and I did do a video on it I was a bit concerned about the Baroness Warzai being put in charge as the Minister of Faith and Communities. However, that's beside the point. What we have here is a debate going on in Parliament, which was set up by Andrea Leadsom. She's the Conservative MP for South Northamptonshire. And in a way, this is a response to you. I hopefully will be sending this to you, Mrs. or Miss, I assume it's Mrs. Leadsom, and hopefully you'll take on some of the issues that I'm going to bring up. And hopefully we can have a discussion. I myself live very near, and although I'm a North Northamptonshire constituent, you are very close to me in the sense of I'm born and bred within the Northampton area. Okay, I want to have a look at this little debate you had last week in Parliament, and it was broadcast on the parliamentary BBC TV. And that was a clip I just showed us then. And I am concerned, I must admit, over your hatred for secularists. And I want to put you straight in a few issues. Just this little piece that I took and placed just there, we will discuss, because there's too much to discuss within the whole debate. Mainly that debate was backslapping of Christians for Christian things and great things that Christians do within communities. And of course, many Christians do charity work. Nobody will deny that. But many non-Christians also do charity work, something which was never really brought up. In fact, even at one point, you say those that work for non-Christian organisations are often run by people of faith. Well, that's true, but of course it's meaningless in the fact that they're also run by non-faith people, and not all charities are have to be faith-based. Charity status is given to people and organisations on what they do, not on what they believe, and this is how it's always been. If, for instance, it's a charity, a faith-based charity, as you put it, and let's say it was Islamic, and it's Islamic ideals of Sharia law. Now, if you yourself, I assume, do not believe in Sharia law, well, of course, a lot of people do believe in Sharia law. Now, based upon what you're saying is that if all faiths have to be taken into consideration, then you're going to make them legal and you're going to put them within a parliamentary debate, etc., then you also have to take into things like punishment and crime and punishment and all those things that come with Sharia law. The way that they debase women, for instance. You are in fact supporting that by ignoring the fact that outside of that faith base there are some serious problems with the moral issues amongst the rest of the community. You see, communities aren't just about one small group, they're about community in general, and that's indeed what secularism is in fact about, the generalisation of community and not about individual stupidities. People can believe in what they like. No secularist will ever tell you otherwise. It is true that atheists, like myself, will go around telling people who believe in goblins and fairies, as far as I'm concerned there is no difference between that and God. We will go around telling people that they're wrong. And they're telling us they're right. We're telling them they're wrong. Now, you mentioned muscular secularism. Muscular secularism. You make out as if we're a bunch of Nazis going around putting Jewish stars on people, then making them walk in the gutter. Absolute rubbish. There is no such thing as muscular secularism. It doesn't exist, but why did you put the word muscular in front? Because it makes it sound evil. That's why. You couldn't have just said secularism in the same way that we say faith-based, or okay, we might say things like the God Squad or the Bible bashers. That's true. But muscular secularism, it's just an aggressive way of putting it. And if you notice, when you said that, there was like, yes, yes, somebody else cheering you on as if to say, yes, yes, go on. That was just so annoying. Okay, let's look at what you said in this very short speech. I'll go to each point. Well, just then I had a letter come through the door, so I went to get it quickly. And lo and behold, as if by a miracle, we have this Christian Assembly, some sort of manual thing, I think. Christian Assembly, there you go. They invited me along for tea on the 14th of July at 4:15 p.m. and it's at Arbor's Primary School main hall. There you go, a primary school that is funded by local authorities. See, now I wonder if I went along there and asked them if it would be okay if we held a humanist thing there. Would that be okay? Invite people along for a humanist. We could then form a group and we'd be part of the communities. Would that be okay? I'm sure you would say yes, that would be fine. But, you know, at the moment, this is a country which is not secular. And that proves it's not secular because in America you wouldn't be holding a religious meeting at a primary school. I have no problem with that, to be perfectly honest. I couldn't care less. As long as we, as taxpayers, are not paying for it. The school's not open on a Sunday, so I assume that they could probably use it for free. And I don't think it's going to be a major burden upon, you know, community funds. And that's the thing. The same with the charities. As long as they're not a major problem on community funds, then that's fine. Nobody has a problem with that. And whether you're of any faith whatsoever, no problem with that whatsoever. And I don't think there is a secularist that will ever say otherwise. Anyway, let's get on with what I was going to do. Charity work goes unnoticed, you say, amongst faith groups. Well, charity work goes unnoticed amongst non-faith groups as well. I've done charity work myself. I've been with, say, the Pat Dogs. I used to take my dog along to various hospices, things like that. We'd take our dogs along, they'd pat the dogs, and it was great to see, because a lot of these people in these institutions don't get to have pets or keep pets. And I was asked to go along and I went along and had a great time, and it was great, but I wasn't doing it for recognition. It was a while ago, I wasn't doing it for recognition, and you know, you do it because of some sort of altruism. It's altruism within the human nature. It's something you perhaps need to understand more than you do God. That we like to help each other because one day we might be in that position where we need that help ourselves. And through helping others, we help ourselves also. And this is the way nature works. And I've said this in other videos, but I'm addressing you today. Okay. And when it comes to charitable work within communities, that is fine. A lot of people of faith are also people who aren't in full-time employment. This must be recognised. There's a lot of elderly, obviously, within faith communities, and they don't have, a lot of them, a lot to do. Let's be honest. Some people find their community within a faith group, and I have no doubt at all that there's an awful lot of people within the Church of England who really don't give a fig about the church. It's more about the community and meeting each other. Now, when you go to a church, there is only so much praising of God you can do. Praising of Jesus, let's praise God, tell a few stories. There's only so much of that you can do. You can't do it every single week. Well, they do it every single week, but there has to be something else. There has to be a reason for coming together beyond, to be honest, talking to something that doesn't talk back. And that is why these people get together and they say, right, let's do something good for the community. Now, this would happen whether you are religious or not. And I suppose, and I'm looking at it from your perspective, that when you're within this religious group, yes, there is far more opportunity to do these things. But don't undermine the secular people of this world, because we also work within the realms of reason. And I have to go to work 5 days a week. In fact, I can't even see myself retiring, to be honest, because I can't afford to, which is very annoying. But if I did have that time, I am sure I would spend some of it doing things within the community. It's a great way of meeting people, getting friends, you know, these coffee mornings and all that. That's super when you're not working. Unfortunately, when you are working, you don't always have time for all this. You wouldn't really understand that because you're an MP. But there you go. Bit of a jibe there, I know. However, have a laugh, don't take me too seriously on that. Okay. Okay, not done for gratitude or recognition, we've done that. You should make space for those of faith. Well, you should make space for anybody who's helping out, really. But does that mean we should fund them? And you're having this discussion to say, really, that local communities should be funding them. You don't say that per se, but it's quite obvious that's what you mean, because how else would a local community help out? Okay, it could lend them the odd school for a meeting, but that's not a problem, is it? You're really looking for funding and for tax breaks, etc., just because people believe in pixies. Okay, and I can't see any point in that, and I'm sure if you thought about it, you couldn't really see any point in that either. Local authorities working close with faith groups, we've sort of done that. Now, local authorities are looking from a plural rather than a secular perspective. Plural rather than a secular perspective. That is an interesting line you use there. What is wrong with a secular perspective? A secular perspective really is one that says you can all believe what you like, but do not bring it within the realms of government. Because once you do, again, you'll have things like Sharia law or church law going against the laws of the land. And the laws of the land are created through reason. They're created by people getting together in Parliament, and I'm sure you know this, and battling it out in debates. Your debate here doesn't do any battling whatsoever. I didn't see one secularist there giving their opinion. It was all backslapping people that are obviously Christians. Even though in the audience, I think I saw a Muslim in the audience, but and I'm sure there's probably a Plymouth Brethren in the audience as well, but they didn't have a voice. And there was no voice at all for the secularist perspective within this debate. And that was shocking, really was shocking, because which is why I'm doing this now. Okay. Let's go on a sec, just bear with me a second. There's a few more points I wanted to make on muscular secularism. You talk about muscular secularism, as I said a little earlier, as if we're some sort of evil sods. Do you ever see any protests anywhere from angry protests from muscular secularists? Do they stand outside churches demanding that churches close down? Do they stand outside mosques demanding that the Muslims should leave the country immediately? Any of these things? No. And you don't see that because we are not like that. We're not about that. We will, obviously, take a side that shows where these particular religions and ideologies are going wrong, in the same way that a parliament would. But that is it. Now, if you look at secularism over the years, we've supported things like, and when I say we, obviously not me because I wasn't born then, but if you look back at your own Charles Bradlaugh, the Northampton MP, here was a man who supported women's rights. Now, women's rights and votes for women and all these things, without that secular voice, you wouldn't even be in Parliament. You wouldn't even be there. And women would still be fighting for these things. Now, it's obviously, once again, you could say that not every atheist, which Charles Bradlaugh was, actually, not every atheist supported votes for women, and not every Christian did either. But that's just it. It wasn't a faith-based thing, but it was a secular ideal. Not just, if you look at things, not just women's rights, but if you look at things like gay rights, if you look at, you know, the rights of everyone, it's a secular issue. We're about the rights, and many religious point of view do not support those rights. Gay rights has been a huge thing that's been debated constantly and extremely boringly in Parliament. And even in this particular debate that you're having here, you bring up the fact, in fact it's not you so much as Sir Edward Lee. In fact, I'll do a quick clip here and we'll take a look at that before I comment on it.
Actually, it's even more serious than that. There isn't a single, as far as I know, Catholic adoption agency left working in this country, despite the fact that they were working with the most vulnerable people. They were all forced to close down because they were told by local authorities that they had to abide by equality legislation. Equality legislation trumps everything on same-sex couples adopting children. Catholic adoption agencies weren't prepared to do it. They've all closed down. So I think it actually is a very serious attack on faith-based organisations and their ethos.
Okay, so there we are. Sir Edward Lee is the Conservative MP for Gainsborough. He is claiming that there is an attack upon religion because of, obviously, as you've just seen, Catholic adoption agencies have been forced to close down because of secular reasoning. Well, he didn't say secular reasoning, but that's what he means. It's an attack upon Catholics. No, it's not an attack upon Catholics. It's an attack upon bigotry. The bigotry against homosexuals. And that is something which many of faith has. Bigotry against homosexuals. In a secular world, half the people may like them, half the people may not. But that doesn't matter. The fact is they have rights the same as everybody else. They're not doing anything to harm anybody else. If they were, I mean, we're not talking about paedophiles here, we're not talking about rapists, we're talking about general homosexuals that do things amongst themselves that we couldn't give a shit about. Okay? But the thing is, only religion gives a shit. And I'm sorry to use the odd shit word to an MP, but I've heard it before, I'm sure. Anyway, I've watched this debate and it was totally one-sided. It doesn't take any of the secular views whatsoever into account. I give money to charity every single month. I have my own charity that I support. And I can't always go out on the street really doing the evangelical charity thing. You mentioned street pastors, for instance. Now, street pastors, yeah, they may do a reasonable job. The police like them because they don't have to do the sick up quite so much in their own vans, because the street pastors help them out in that role. But the truth is about street pastors is they're out there to evangelize their religion. And that is exactly what they're doing, in the same way that Jehovah's Witnesses go round door to door knocking. It's just they found a better niche in going out and picking up drug addicts and drunks. And that's really what they're looking for, and that's converts. Okay, they do help out the police, as I said, but in a very small way in comparison to, and I don't think, in comparison to other charities, and I don't think that we should in fact be giving them money, and that's really what a lot of this is about, giving money to religious people just for doing their own religious thing. I lost the thread there a bit, but anyway, Andrea Leadsom, I'm here if you wish to talk to me. And if you wish to get a proper view of secularism. It's not some appalling evil. It's something which the whole of communities can learn from and should. It's all about reason. Reason with faith taken out of it. Because faith is not reason. Faith is by its very nature something that isn't true. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called faith. If you have to have faith to believe something, then there's no evidence for it. And that's our perspective. So, I hope you like this little reply to your debate. Please leave a note, get in touch or whatever. I will be sending this to your department. Hopefully any of my subscribers, if you would put a note below and give your opinions to Andrea Leadsom about just this little bit she said. I know you haven't got the whole debate there, but this pretty much summed it up. So yeah, if you leave a note there, I'll leave it a few days before I send it to her so we can build up some comments. Okay, peace for now, and take care.